Just a few quick announcements. Please remember also that we have our teen yard sale on October the 12th and on October the 11th that evening at 6 o'clock. We're going to be meeting at the church, all the teens, and we're going to be pricing all the different things that are there, getting things ready for the 12th. And I'm going to ask for the teens to be at the church on the 12th at about 6:30 so we can get everything set up and set out and be ready to go for that. And that goes towards the activity we're going to be having in December, our skiing activity. So if you would like your child to go, please make sure you put their name up on the back in the back. Also, please remember on the 14th, we have a deacons meeting, a ladies' Bible study also that evening. And the 16th, our quarterly business meeting after the Wednesday evening service. The 26th, our annual fall festival. So if you have not signed up for any of those things, when you go out, take a left, and you got the doors, take a left, and there's a sign-up sheets right there. There's 3 of them. And again, tonight is the last night to sign up for the Pinewood Derby. So if you have not signed up yet, you need to get your name down and make sure you let your children know. If they haven't gotten it down, please do me that favor and get their names on the list. Take your Bibles, please, and turn to Psalms 55. Psalms chapter 55. We're going to be looking at verses 12 through 23, the end of the chapter. And I've entitled my message tonight, Betrayed by a Friend. And we saw how David has been describing the wicked in the first part of this chapter. And he talked about how they used their words to harm him. It says here in verse 3, it says, because the voice of the enemy, he's complaining to God, he's crying out to God, and their words have hurt, their words harmed. And so he's crying out to God about their words and how he's crying out to God in that same verse about how they've oppressed him. They're crying out to God about how he's crying out to God about how they have tried to paint him with the same brush that they are. He talks about their iniquity they put upon me and all that. And he's saying, I haven't done those sins, but they're trying to tell everybody that I have. But then if you look at the last part of that verse 3, that shows their true heart, they hate him. This is the wicked that he's talking about. And we see in verses 6 through 8 that David wants to be like a dove and fly away. He's thinking, I don't want to be around this wickedness. I'm so sick of all the wickedness. I'm so sick of these things. I just like to be a dove and fly away and get as far away from them as possible, fly to the wilderness and keep myself hidden away. But then he talks about from verses 9 through 11, he talks about he wants God to destroy them. He wants God to get rid of him. Utterly remove them, God, because this is not what I need. This is not helping me. These people are wreaking havoc, not just upon David, but they've actually come into the city of God, Jerusalem, and they have spread that poisonous words and slander to the people there, to where the people of Jerusalem are now believing it. And so David's like, God, just get rid of them. Get rid of them completely. Now, he's talking about the wicked and how terrible they are and how horrible they've been. But the verse we're going to look at tonight, these wicked people are people that David knew and apparently knew very intimately because they were his friends. Have you ever had a friend betray you? You're talking about somebody who you trust, somebody that you love, somebody that you've possibly given just your feelings and secrets and so on too, and you've trusted them, and they betrayed you. This is what David's talking about in these verses. And he's hurt, and he cries out to God because of this. I mean, these people knew David's strengths, and they also knew his weaknesses. And David knows that because they know his weaknesses, they can use them against him, and they have. And so let's look at verses 12 through 23, how these wicked have betrayed his trust and their friendship. Let's read verses 12 all the way through the rest of the chapter. It says in verse 12, for it was not an enemy that reproached me, then I could have borne it. Neither was it he that hated me that did magnify himself against me, then I would have hid myself from him. But it was thou, a man my equal, my guide, and mine acquaintance. We took sweet counsel together and walked unto the house of God in company. Let death seize upon them, and let them go down quick into hell, for wickedness is in their dwellings and among them. As for me, I will call upon the name of the Lord, and the Lord shall save me. Evening and morning and at noon will I pray and cry aloud, and he shall hear my voice. He hath delivered my soul in peace from the battle that was against me, for there were many with me. God shall hear and afflict them, even he that abideth of old, Selah, because they have no changes, therefore they fear not God. He hath put forth his hands against such as be at peace with him. He hath broken his covenant. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. Cast thy burden upon the Lord, and he shall sustain thee. He shall never suffer the righteous to be moved. But thou, O God, shalt bring them down into the pit of destruction. Bloody and deceitful men shall not live out half their days, but I will trust in thee. Let's look tonight, if we can. I've got 3 points to my message tonight. Let's look, first of all, at betrayed by a friend in verses 12 through 14. It's sad to hear what David's saying. He looks at it and he says, if it was not an enemy that reproached me, then I could have borne it. Neither was it they that hated me that did magnify himself against me. Then I would have hid myself from him. He's classifying this person. This is somebody that I knew, a friend. Somebody that he says here in these verses, in verse 13, but it was thou, a man, mine equal, my guide, and mine acquaintance. He even talks about verse 14, how we walked into the house of God together. He's looking at somebody who was not just a mere acquaintance, but I believe somebody that was close to him, somebody that he would classify as a friend. And folks, there's no wound that cuts deeper than the wound of a friend. I mean, that's why he says in verse 12, if it was an enemy, I'd expect that. If it was somebody that hated me, I got that. It's not a big deal. It wouldn't hurt me as much. I mean, when you get someone that doesn't like you and you know it, it doesn't hurt you as much when they say something negative about you because you're kind of expecting that. What scares you is when they start talking nice about you. Then you go, what's going on? What's happened? What's coming up? And this is what he's saying here. David in these verses is talking about a friend who has betrayed his trust. This friend is what I would classify as a false friend. This individual has gained David's trust to the point that he knows David's strengths and he knows David's weaknesses, and he has used those weaknesses against David. Maybe he knew something about David that nobody else did, and he's gone around and told it to people. Maybe he's tried to, hey, I'm going to try to be David's friend, but at the same time, I'm going to run over here to the enemy and try to be the enemy's friend, and I'm going to play both sides. Whatever it was, this has hurt David. He's exploited David's weaknesses for his own gain. No enemy has done this. Again, he would have expected it. Instead, it was a false friend. He has used his words here to slander him. He has used his words here to say negative things about him. That's what we find back in verse 3. This is the person he's talking about. A friend. Person that you classified as a friend. And David's going, this is what the wicked's doing. The problem is David's eyes were blinded. He didn't know that he was this wicked. Until all of a sudden the Lord opened his eyes and he's, whoa, look what's happened. Look in verse 13. He sees this friend that betrayed him. It says, but it was thou. It's almost like, you ever been on the phone and you're talking with someone and you don't know they're that close to you, and look around and go, hey, you're right there. I've done that to my wife before. I've been walking over to the parsonage to get something, and she calls me, and I go, hello? She goes, hey, what are you doing? I said, just walking. I said, where are you at? She goes, I'm in the kitchen. I said, oh, okay, about that time I'm opening the door. She goes, what? What are you? And she doesn't, she hangs up the phone and goes, why didn't you tell me you're on the way home? I said, I didn't think I needed to. I was 3 steps away from telling you I was home. Well, here he's saying, hey, this wicked person that I'm describing, that I'm talking about, there he is. Now, as he's talking about and describing, he's probably angry. He's upset. And we can be that way when we're talking about the person, but then all of a sudden, what if you see that person? It gets worse, doesn't it? It was bad enough thinking about what Joe Schmo over here did, but now you see Joe Schmo face to face, and like, oh, and it just kind of kicks it up another notch, doesn't it? It'd be better if I didn't see him, but there he is. And that's what he's saying. Hey, this wicked person, it wasn't the enemy, it was you. He's pointing his finger at this person. You did it. He was the perpetrator of the hateful words, action, and the anger builds. But he does give him some kind words when he says this to him. A man my equal. You know that means David says that? David says that I didn't look at myself being over you. You didn't look at yourself being over me. We were same eye. We were equal. My guide, in other words, my guide, he was my counselor. I went and talked to him. He came and talked to me. We helped guide each other through this life. We helped each other with decisions. And mine acquaintance, it means that we spent time together. He knew this man intimately, or men. But look what's even worse. 14. We took sweet counsel together and walked unto the house of God in company. That means they both went to God's house together to get counsel in God's house, but this man the whole time was betraying him. This friend, I'll be the first one to tell you who my best friend in this world is, and that's my wife. We talk about whatever. We talk about anything and everything. We have time together. We talk. We're friends. And you know what? It's almost like he's saying, my friend has betrayed me to the point that he is coming to the house of God. Kova, you and Candy, I'm going to pick on you. They're sitting right here, husband and wife. Friends. Well, I'm watching him. Got to keep an eye on that one, that shady one right there. But they're friends. But I'm going to tell you something. If the trust is gone, you can no longer call yourself husband and wife anymore, can you? You really can't even call yourself friends. Trust is gone. You're going to be wondering where he's at, and he's going to be wondering where you're at all the time. Where you at? What you doing? Why are you there? Stuff of that nature. This is what David's telling the guy. We came and sat in church together, buddy. We were friends. We walked into the house of God together to worship God together. We sat there in God's house together. We did all these things together, and you betrayed me. So all that, hate to say it, was just a farce. It was just an act. And folks, there's a lot of people out there that can act spiritual. They can act religious. They know the words to say and when to say them and how to say them. They know how to act, how to dress, what kind of Bible to carry, so on and so on. They know how to play the part. But see, this guy didn't just betray David, he betrayed his God too. David here is going, it was you. Do you remember when David was told that? Remember Nathan the prophet? It was you. Now David's looking at this friend. Now it was you. He knows how it felt. He knows what it was like. And he's looking at him and he's saying, hey, you betrayed me. But then we say, secondly, in verses 15 through 19, David's prayer. He's talking to God with this. He's looking at this guy and he's going, you did this. But then he begins to pray here. It says, let death seize upon them and let them go down quick into hell, for wickedness is in their dwellings and among them. David prays that God would take their life. Now, please understand something. He wasn't doing this out of revenge. Okay, understand this. This man or men or a group of people or whoever this was, this friend, was now what we classify as a traitor. He had betrayed David, who was the king. What do you think the penalty was for being a traitor would be? Death. Head chopped off, taken out back, stoned, whatever. You weren't going to live very much longer if you were somebody who you'd be classified as a betrayer or a traitor. And here he's saying, God, take them out. They've been traitors to me. They've been playing me for a fool, God. They said they were my friend, but they've been playing me for a fool. They're really wicked. God, kill them. Remove them. And he even goes so far, if you look down, it says, let them go down quick into hell. Why would he say that? You could almost put the word why beside that. He said, for wickedness is in their dwellings and among them. He's letting them know this. So far, what David's saying him is no good thing. They're wicked. Now, can I ask you a question? Is there any good thing within us? Is there any good thing within you? As a Christian, there should be. That's Christ. As an unsaved individual, there's nothing good within you. Not one thing. Paul wrote, there's nothing good that dwelleth within me. The only thing that we have going for us tonight is Christ. Here David's saying all they've got for them is wickedness. What do they deserve? Death and hell. What do we deserve? Death and hell. But by the grace of God, as a Christian tonight, as a child of God, we do not get that. We get what they call grace, unmerited favor. We're getting something we don't deserve. This is exactly what we see here. But David's looking at them and he's saying, God, this isn't vengeance. This is justice. Give justice to these men. Because look what it says in verse 16. He switches gears, but he's saying, almost like saying, as for me, I will call upon God. What he's trying to tell you is this: as for me, I'm not going to be as the wicked. I'm not going to be like them. I'm not going to repay evil for evil. I'm not going to do these things. Instead, I'm going to call upon God to fight this battle. I'm going to call upon God to take care of this situation. I could handle it as king, but I'd rather God handle it. I could handle it, but I'd rather God take care of it. If God takes care of it, David can take his hands off and go, I had nothing to do with this. This was all God's judgment. And that's what he's saying in verse 16. As for me, I will call upon the Lord, and the Lord shall save me. And guess what? He shall save us tonight too, won't he? If we call upon him. It says, evening and morning and at noon will I pray and cry aloud, and he shall hear my voice. Now, let me ask you a question. How many times a day, don't answer this out loud, but think it in your own mind. How many times a day do you pray? Now, I know we think of evening and morning and noon. We think of breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's when I pray, right? I ask God to take that food and bless it to the nourishment of my body. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about, I spend time in prayer. I call upon God. And I love how it says in the last part of that verse, and he shall hear my voice. Can I tell you something, folks? God hears us when we pray. The only time he does not is when we hold iniquity in our heart, when we have unconfessed sin in our heart and our lives. Then he doesn't hear our prayers. But David here is saying, I've done nothing wrong. The wicked are the ones that have been doing something wrong. So God, I'm going to come to you. I'm going to ask for you to save me, which I know you will. I know you're going to hear my prayers because I come to you and I cry aloud and I cry unto you. But Lord, I want you to take care of the wicked. They've done enough. Don't you, I don't like to use the word wish, but don't you wish that God would take care of the wicked? Don't you wish for once on a Monday night you go home and you turn on the news and there's nothing bad to report? Wouldn't you love to be able to open the Daily Disappointment tomorrow morning and there's only one page and it's nothing but good news? There's been no robberies. There's been no murders. There's been no this. There's been no that. There's been no treachery. There's been none of those. Wouldn't it be wonderful? I mean, it would be to me to look at the news and go, wow, nothing bad happened today. There's been nothing reported that's bad. Everything's been good. But I live in a world that's not rainbow and lollipops either. We live in a world that's sinful. We live in a fallen, depraved society. And here's the thing. We love to see the wickedness be gone, wouldn't we? But it's our job, it's our duty as believers to go out into that wicked world and to tell them about Christ. That's our job. It's not just the preachers or the deacon's job or an evangelist or missionaries. It's everybody's. I love what Paul said this morning about how he said, Lord, I need to get to the field. I'm up on this roof and I'm hammering nails. I need to get to this field. And God said, you got a field already. Right there. If you're not going to do it here, I can't expect you to do it there. And it's the same thing with us. We need to be telling others about Christ at every chance we get. Because this world is wicked and it's getting more wicked every day. And this is what he's saying. He's saying, it says in verse 18, he had delivered my soul in peace from the battle that was against me, for there were many with me. In other words, what he's saying here is, hey, God, you've taken such good care of me. You saved me. You've heard me. You're going to take care of the wicked. And you've given me peace about what they've said about me. You know, all those wicked and mean and nasty and hateful. They tried to oppress me. They tried to hurt me with their words. They hate me. They've tried to say that I've done things that I haven't done. God, you've given me peace. I don't have to worry about them. I wonder how many of us have ever worried about the betrayal of a friend. Hadn't slept at night, gotten upset, gotten angry, said things we shouldn't say, just been so frustrated and angry. Have we asked God to give us peace? God, I can't do this. You know what David's saying here? Those wicked were battling against him. He says, God gave me peace in the midst of battle. I don't have to worry. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to answer this. If you worry about something, does it change it? No, but it does change you. Worrying about a situation will never change that situation, but it will change you. It'll make it to where you don't sleep at night. It'll make it to where you fret. It'll make it to where some people bite their fingernails. Some people get ulcers. I mean, so folks, stress is a real thing. And most people stress about stuff they can't do anything about. Oh, what am I going to do about this? Nothing. You can't. Now, if it's something you can do something about, that's a different ballgame. I mean, if you have health issues and your doctor looks at you and says, you need to quit eating salt, and you're over there going, I like salt. Okay, that's your own fault. You should stress about that because you're not listening. But if it's something you can do nothing about, even if we can do something about it, we still shouldn't stress. Look what he's saying. He had delivered. What does that mean? It's already been done. He had delivered my soul in peace from the battle that was against me, for there were many with me. God shall hear and afflict them, even he that abideth. So he knows that there are many there. He knows that God's going to hear. God's going to afflict them. God's going to take care of them. He doesn't have to worry. And folks, can I tell you something? We sometimes carry around such silly burdens that we were never meant to carry. God is a burden bearer. And he will bear our burdens. And by the way, he wants to bear our burdens. He wants to take that heavy burden that you're carrying around and lift it off and give you comfort. Take care of it. But you know what some of us like? We like the burden. I mean, think about this. Think about today if you got to carry around 60 extra pounds tonight for the next week upon your shoulders when you went to bed, when you got up, when you took a shower, everything you did, you had to carry 60 more pounds on you. How many of y'all would enjoy that? None of us would. That's just what it's like carrying a burden. Yeah, Woody's pointing to his stomach. We're not putting that on you. That's your problem. But if you had to carry that burden, if it was a knapsack that you had on your back and you had to carry 60 extra pounds all day, you may start out like this. I can handle this. Not a problem. But I guarantee you tomorrow morning as you're going through your day, you're like, I want to get this thing off. This is killing me. My lower back's killing me. Oh, my shoulders are hurting, my knees. We'd be complaining the whole time. We probably wouldn't be able to make it to the next Sunday. That's what a lot of people are doing right now with their burden of sin. It's weighing them down. And they never bother to say, God, I can't do this. Could you please take this? And he will. And he'll give us, as it says in verse 18, peace. Book of Ephesians tells us that Jesus Christ is our peace. He's the one who's given us peace. He has obtained peace for us through the salvation of our soul. And this is what we're saying. David's saying, God, take care of this problem. I'm not going to worry. I'm not going to worry. I've told you the story. I remember the day very clearly when they told me that I was going to have this operation on my skull and all this kind of stuff. I had peace. I had peace about it. I remember 2 weeks before I was supposed to have it done, I went to the barber, the Trina, Winston and Linda's daughter, to get my hair cut. And they told me they were going to shave just a piece right here. And I remember telling them, no, you're not. I'm not going home like a backwards mohawk. I said, no, shave it all. And I remember walking in there and sitting down. She goes, well, how you want me to cut it? I said, I want you to shave me bald. She goes, I've never done that. I said, well, you're going to today. She had to go next door to a little market and buy a razor because she didn't have one. I said, shave it all off. Because you know what? I had peace. I'm not worried about it. My mom was a little worried. Sure, my wife was, my children. But I remember going in there for the operation. I remember walking in and getting myself prepared, laying on the gurney. The lady looked at me and goes, your blood pressure is really good. And I said, good. She goes, do you understand you're having surgery today? I said, oh, yes, ma'am. She goes, most people, their blood pressure goes up when they go to have surgery because they're nervous. I said, ma'am, God's giving me peace. I said, I slept like a baby last night. Those burdens don't have to be a burden. What does David have here? Burdens. Who did he have it with? Not with an enemy that he thought he had, but with an enemy that was close. Because we see finally the wicked friend's conduct in verses 20 through 23. David thinks of the conduct of the wicked. The friend had wicked conduct. And can I just throw something out there to you? And it's pretty simple logic. Wicked people are going to have wicked conduct. Simple, isn't it? I don't expect a wicked person to have righteous conduct. They're going to have wicked conduct. And that's what he's saying here in verse 20. It says, he hath put forth his hands against such as be at peace with him. He has broken his covenant. So in other words, this friend has come to David and hurt David, and David has done nothing to him. They were at peace. I mean, if you have a friend, don't you think that you're at peace with that friend? Well, that's what he had. He goes, I got peace with this guy, but guess what? This guy, apparently, this friend felt like, oh, no, we're not at peace. I'm going to do things that are going to make it to where we're at war. I'm going to break that covenant. I'm going to break that allegiance that we have to each other, and I'm going to make it to where you suffer. This is the conduct of the wicked, folks. Do not be surprised. I hear people all the time go, I can't believe they did that to me. And I'm thinking, okay, we're all can do those same things. This is what happens. It says, the words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. Folks, I've seen some guys and gals who can flatter you. Oh, my word. Just as smooth of a charmer, and the words that flow off their tongue. You're just sitting there going, almost like a used car salesman. Really, I mean, they're just looking at you. Oh, you sure look nice today. I think, again, Eddie Haskell off the Leave It to Beaver. You're looking beautiful, Mrs. Cleaver. And then he walks over and punches the beaver and tells him to shut up or something. For Mrs. Cleaver, his words were like butter that just so smooth and so sweet and so savory. I mean, you look at him and go, oh, this friend is wonderful, but they're wicked. Wickedness. Because look what it says in that verse. He says, but war was in his heart. Hey, there was flattery on his lips. But he had war here. There was a problem he had with David, and he never told David because his words were like butter, smoother than butter. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. Oh, I mean, this guy was just so nice, but he had wickedness in his heart. And David never knew it. Why? Because his words were so nice. His words would have never thought of there being a problem. He says here in verse 22 that they need to do like David does, like we need, if this happens to us, cast thy burden upon the Lord, and he shall sustain thee. Remember what I was just talking about, casting your burden? This is what he's saying. Hey, cast your burden upon the Lord. I feel like some people like to carry that burden. It's something they can complain about. Oh, my back hurts. Why? Because I'm carrying this burden. Oh, my knees are shaking. Why? Because I'm carrying this burden. Why don't you put the burden down? Oh, I can't. I got to carry it. Folks, give it to God. No one even needs to know you're carrying a burden. God's got it. But so many times we want everyone to know these burdens, and instead let's give it to God. The wicked may try to move us, because look what it says, he shall never suffer the righteous to be moved. They might try to move us, but God will not allow it. Have you ever had someone say something to you, do something to you that made you move because of their wicked mouth, their wicked words, their wicked actions? Because you knew maybe if you said something, it may not be the best thing to come out your mouth. People know how to push your buttons, don't they? We all do, by the way. I know sometimes we don't think, oh, I would never push anybody's buttons. We do. We may not even realize it that we do, but we do. And here he's saying, hey, God will never suffer the righteous to be moved. When you're doing what God wants you to do and how God wants you to do it, you're not going to be moved from that spot. Because you're not doing it on your own, you're doing it for him. But thou, O God, shalt bring them down into the pit of destruction. Bloody and deceitful men shall not live out half their days, but I will trust in thee. He's giving a warning here to these deceitful and wicked men, these friends, we'll call them. He said, hey, your days are coming to an end very quickly. God's going to remove you. You're that burden. It's been on my shoulders. It's been on my back. God's going to remove you. But I love how David ends it. You haven't trusted in God, but I do. I don't trust in my friends, folks, like I trust in God. Do I trust my friends? Yes, or they wouldn't be my friends. Pretty simple, isn't it? But I trust in the Lord much more than I ever trust in man. We all should. And that's what David's saying here. Hey, you can trust in your words, you can trust in your actions, you can trust in your finances, you can trust in all those other things, but I'm going to trust in God. Because I know what their end's going to be like. He says here, but thou, O God, shalt bring them down to the pit of destruction. Bloody and deceitful men shall not live out half their days. This is what's going to happen to you guys. But I trust in the Lord. He's given me peace. He's taken my burden. I don't have to worry about you guys, you so-called friends that have betrayed me. And folks, I think this is something we all can probably understand. The betrayal of a friend. Someone who is truly we thought was a friend that's betrayed us. We can all see, we've all probably had that happen to us at some point in time in our lives, whether we were younger, whether we're older, or even happened to us today or yesterday or last week. We've been betrayed. These wicked people have done that. Question you have to ask yourself is this: do you trust in the Lord? Have you cast that burden upon Him, or are you still carrying it right here? Folks, there's no reason for us to carry that burden around. Not one reason. And we'll say, but you don't know what they've done to me. I don't care to know. That's not my business. That's God's business. Give it to Him. Forgive them and forget it. Move on. Because see, they're still winning the victory. They're still winning the battle when you continue to harp on it. When you continue to live with it. They're still winning the battle. Hey, they've hurt you. That's great. Move on. Oh, but I can't move on. Then they're just going ahead and raise the white flag. You're done. They've already won. David wasn't about to do that. God, you take care of this situation. You handle it. You fix the problem. You remove the burden. You deliver me from it. You give me peace. I'm raising my hands and going, God, it's all yours. And I know you may look at me and go, oh, that's easier said than done. It may be. But again, where's our faith at? Are we really going to let a so-called friend take away our joy? Take away our peace? No. No. But I will trust in thee. Let's bow our heads, please, tonight. Heads bowed and eyes closed, no one looking around. I don't know tonight if somebody has done something to hurt you, has done something to cause problems with you, has betrayed you. I don't know. Maybe that friend has been wicked. You found some things out. Maybe you're just carrying around a burden. Not even a friend, just a burden. Cast thy burdens upon the Lord. Come to this altar and lay them down here tonight. There is not one reason why you should continue to carry those burdens. Tonight, if you're a child of God, I pray that you will come. Cast thy burdens upon the Lord. Don't let the betrayal of a friend rob you of your peace, your joy, your comfort in God. Gracious Heavenly Father, I pray tonight, Lord, that thou wouldst have thy perfect will and way in the invitation, draw unto thyself those that need to come. And I pray this all in Jesus' holy and precious name. Amen. Heads bowed and eyes closed. Let's all stand together. As Miss Sarah plays a song of